Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are live today on the podcast and the Zoomcast. Excited to see Matt Thomann in person. He's the owner of Mettle Coaching from White House, Tennessee. Welcome back to the show today. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me on, Jill.
Well, we're excited to have you back. And would you mind by starting to tell us a little bit about your business and what it is you do exactly?
Yeah, I'd love to. As you mentioned, my business is Mettle Coaching, and I think it's important to point out that the metal is the different form of the word. It's METTLE, which, if you know the word, it's kind of an old school word. It means to face adversity in a spirited and resilient way, and that really ties into my mission statement. I work mostly with athletes, young athletes of all ages, really, and it's all to help them gain some mental toughness and gain that spirited and resilient mindset towards facing adversities. And I do that in a couple ways. First and foremost, I started the business as working as a certified coach, an ICF certified coach, working with athletes, doing mental coaching with them, using that coaching technique to work with them and help them gain that mental toughness. But then I realized there's only so many hours in the day. You can't work with every kid every time. So I branched out to find ways that I could help educators and parents and coaches help them gain mental toughness as well. And I do that in a couple ways. I do travel and do professional development with schools and with coaches. And I also have an online course that I do for parents and one for coaches. And then now I own my own podcast now, the Mental Mettle Podcast. It's the same idea. It's just all about interviewing coaches and players and just helping them have them share their story that will help others learn how to forge that mental toughness.
Beautiful. And by the way, how do we contact you? What is your website, phone number, social media pages?
Absolutely. So the website is www.mentalmetallifecoaching.com. And of course, remember that it's METTLE. And you can just reach me at Coach Thomann at gmail.com. And that Thomann is THOMANN.
Perfect. So how, Matt, did you get into the business specifically?
Yeah, it's a long roundabout way that I got there. But I do have a background in athletics. I grew up playing baseball, basketball, went on, played a little bit of college basketball, and became a basketball coach in high school. I've done with girls and with boys and with junior high and a lot of things. And then I worked into administration. So I was an athletic director for a while. And then I've got my own kids. Both of them are in college now, but they played sports. My son still plays college basketball. So I've got a lot of just about every background you can imagine in athletics. And I think a lot of people have that. But then mine kind of, it changed. My journey changed a little bit when I was working as an administrator in 2020. I battled testicular cancer. And then 4 months later, I suffered an ischemic stroke that really affected my speech centers. And I really struggled to communicate. The cognition was still there, but I struggled to communicate, speaking well, reading well, things like that. And you'll still hear me once in a while. I get tired and these words. It's only been 2.5 years. So, but I really struggled after that. Really had some issues with anxiety. I was back in the hospital or back in the ER with PTSD, worrying, having anxiety attacks, learning how to get I went and got some help, some therapy, started learning about positive psychology. I experienced some coaching, learned about, hey, this is something I could go do, went and got my own certification and opened my business and realized that, hey, you didn't just have to have had a stroke to use this stuff. It's really useful for everybody. And since I came from the sports world, I decided that's what I was going to do. So it's a long story how I got there, but I think it's a useful story to help understand why I do what I do.
And what is it about the coaching method that really made you believe that this career was worth pursuing?
I think that if I boiled it all down to one word, it was when I was in therapy and I started learning about the neuroplasticity, which is just all about the brain's ability to Well, the brain's plastic and it's moldable, and we can change it. We can build new neurons and build neural pathways to change how we feel about things. And it was explained to me that that's how I was going to be able to speak again. I had this, this
Yeah.
spot in my brain that I couldn't use correctly. So we had to build these neurons to go around it. And that was going to take time to do it. But then in doing so, I worked with a therapist, and she said, we can also build neuroplasticity, or build neurons to help you get over your anxiety and help over some of that PTSD you're experiencing. And I just realized that, hey, how you feel about something is in your control if you want to put the time in to build that, build those neural pathways, and you can develop mental toughness and change how your positivity. So I think that was really it was just eye opening to know that, to me, that was possible, and that I just got to work.
All right. Well, what exactly is mental toughness, if you don't mind kind of elaborating on that a little bit and why you think that's so important for athletes?
Yeah, to me, that mental toughness is your ability to face adversity. Again, that word metal, and to face adversity in a useful way, and to say, hey, I know what I can do, and I know what I'm trying to achieve, and do that regardless of the situation. And I think that's so important for athletes, because athletes compete, and athletes have competitors, and they play games to win and they lose. So just by definition, athletics is adversity.
Mhm.
And I think that adversity is a good thing, because adversity is what helps us grow. That's how we learn. We learn what works and what doesn't. And adversity is it's really fundamental for us to grow, but only if we have the right mindset. If you're taking, let's take an example of a young kid that's playing a sport. You've got a kid that's young and he's got a lot of talent, and he's a sixth grade basketball player, and they find out, oh, he's really good. And the coaches know that, hey, if we want him to be better, we need to move him up. We need to move him up and have him more challenges, more adversity. And they know that that's going to help him grow and get better. But when they do that, the kid goes from always winning to struggling and
Mhm.
playing against people that are better. And if the kid doesn't have the right mindset, they don't use that adversity to help them grow. So I think they've got to have that mental toughness to go along with that adversity to be able to continue to grow. That's just why it's so important. And again, Jill, this isn't just I work with athletes because I like athletics, but I mean, this idea is for everyone, of, that adversity is how
And
we
parents
grow, and
and
you need it.
coaches
Yeah,
too,
absolutely.
right? They need to help work with
Absolutely.
them. Okay.
Absolutely.
So, is there any warning signs that we should be looking for as parents or coaches?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things to see as parents that you really need to pay attention to. And I mentioned that you've got to have that mental toughness when they're facing adversity. Well, as they start to face adversity, you need to be able to see how they react, because those are clues into their mindset a little bit. And I usually come up with about four things. One of them is if they start to focus on things that they can't control. So if they start to focus on things like referees and coaches' decisions, and even if they focus on things like genetics, like, oh, I'm not tall enough, I'm not strong enough, I'm not old enough, things like that. That's one thing. If they focus on that, that's too much. If they shy away from challenges, if they see something's going to be hard and they don't even want to go, or they don't even want to do it, that's a problem. If they just lack the confidence, if you see them have ability in practice and then they can't do it in a game or things like that, they don't believe in their abilities. That's one. And the last one is, I call it bad language, but I don't really mean bad language. I mean, if they have that negative self-talk or that bad negative body language, you see those things, and those are definitely ideas that you're like, hey, this is probably something the kid's not getting the most out of athletics, so I need to do something about that.
Got it. And then also, would you say that what are the warning signs that people can look out for that we're in need of that help as a child who may be struggling? Is there anything we should talk about with that? Or do you want to talk more about the successes that you've seen for your clients and the parents
Yeah,
next?
I think the I think the successes are that, well, the first thing to remember is that it takes some time to grow this. It's not a magic wand. I always tell people that it's not, I start working with a kid. It's not a one-off session. I can't just talk to them and make it better. It takes some time to work. And I kind of see that mental toughness. So I used to be a science teacher and I'm a coach, and coach uses metaphors. So I love using metaphors, and I've got like a little bit of a science example here. If you indulge me here a little bit, I see that mental toughness is kind of like a fire. And I think that's an apt metaphor because we sometimes feel like we have that fire inside us. And I think that as that fire grows, we know that fire needs oxygen. And if you continually add oxygen to a fire, it's going to grow. And to me, that oxygen is kind of like adversity. But I think you have to pay attention to the fact that that same breath that will blow out a candle will also fuel a campfire. So if you've got a kid with just very little bit of adversity or very little mental toughness, and their fire is pretty low, and you just put them in a ton of adversity right off the bat, you're just going to put that fire out. So you have to you have to add those things a little bit at a time. So the successes we see are real. And I see kids build their mental toughness, build their confidence, build their belief in their abilities, but it takes time to grow that fire. And I think a lot of people want to see it happen overnight, but neuroplasticity and changing your mindset takes some time.
Sure does. And speaking of time, how do we reach you? It's the time to talk about, all the ways we can contact you, phone number, or website, social media, anyway.
Yeah. So again, the website is www.mentalmetallifecoaching.com. My email is Coach Thomann, that's THOMANN @gmail.com. My phone number is 309-265-8750. Any and all of those ways are to get a hold of me are great. I do love it when people reach out and they have questions. I always do. To work with a kid, it's got to be a really good setup. And we have to work well together. And I think I always offer a free 30-minute session because I want to make sure it's a good situation for all of us. So it's,
Awesome.
it's a free try to just see if your kid likes it and if it can help them out.
Do you want to share some more of the success stories and give us some examples?
Absolutely. So I have worked with kids from 8 years old all the way up through Division I athletes, through the Big Ten and the SEC and things like that. And I talked about those warning signs that we see. If you see a kid that is, we all get kids get into sports because they love sports, and we do it as a family. And every parent can remember taking their kid to the first practice, and they just love it, and it's so much fun. And then as they start to see that adversity, we often see them their mindset change, and they don't even want to go. They get really upset. You get really upset in the car afterwards, and those things happen. And when you see that, you got to be like, okay, we need to do something. And I've had so many parents get a hold of me, and we talk and we work with the kids, and the kid was ready to quit. And we just, after a few sessions, we start to change their mindset and help them learn to face what they, focus on what they control to help them, increase their belief. And it starts to change everything really quick for them.
Oh, we love that. I'm dealing with that. My 8-year-old is in football. I mean, he's been in every sport for so long. Now finally he narrowed it down. So we're in football twice a week, and then he didn't want to go last week. So I'm like, okay, I think we should go. It's committed to the team. I'm trying to explain it to him, the commitment he made, and his father is not supportive. He says, just don't let him go. No, he doesn't want to go, don't go. And I'm trying to, how do you handle that when one parent's saying that and the other?
It's so hard to know because on one level, we're like, oh, we want our kid. We know it's good for them, right? Well, they signed up for it. They got a commitment. We know we know they enjoy it, but they start to get that negative mindset. And we don't know what it was, but it was something. Maybe it was something somebody said, or something didn't go as well as they thought, or they're not succeeding quite as they thought. And it really needs to help them. One of the things that we can do, the easiest thing we can do is help them remember, I love to call it the circle of control, and help them focus on what they can control and know that he's 8 years old, right? And we put way too much pressure on whether or not they win or whether they lose. And we really want to be focusing on are you growing? What are you doing? How are you getting better? And if that's, as the parent, if we start to praise those things, I always tell parents, learn to praise the controllables, and your kid will start to focus on the controllables. Don't worry about the wins, the losses, how well, at 8 years old, it matters. So like how genetics and how quickly kids grow makes so much of a difference, right? You get an 8-year-old that's a little pipsqueak, and you got some they're huge, and
Yeah.
it's going to even up someday, but they don't see that. So focus on what they can control and make sure that you're praising what they can control. But I would definitely say, get that mindset and get that going, and really try to work with them to try to get them back to there, because there's so much to be gained from athletics.
Awesome. And so much to be gained from your services. Or remind us of all that you do, if you don't mind.
Yeah. So again, the bread and butter of my business is doing individual virtual sessions with athletes. I love doing that, but like I said, I can only one guy, and kids are busy, so I end up working evenings, and I can only do so many. But beyond that, I also have started creating an online course specifically for parents. So all the tools that I'm starting to learn from working with so many athletes, and all the tools I've learned from my coaching certification. And I used to be a teacher, so this is all right in my wheelhouse. So I'm able to create an online course that I put out for parents. It's their own pace, so that they can start picking up some of these things to help teaching their kids. So they gain a little bit of mental toughness, they gain a little positivity, and they, pass that on to their kid. I do that. And then also, again, I have my web or my podcast, the Mental Mettle Podcast. You can find that on all the streaming services, and you can listen to success stories and different coaches, and you'll, ideas on how you can use my services and everything that I do.
Awesome. Well, there's still more to it as well. What about your future visions for mental mental coaching? What do you think you're going to be doing?
I think that the main goal is I want people know how important physical health is. And most of the people that I work with are into athletics, and they know that, and they want the kid to get stronger. They want him to get better. And I think so much effort, time, money, everything is put into help their physical abilities. I want to be I want my business to be something people think of as a necessity, just like for athletics, but on the mental side. And I just want people to understand that it is as important, if not more important, to be focusing and putting time and effort into the mental part. And I'll do that. I hope to gain more coaches, put out more courses, and just reach people where they are in different ways, just so they can help the kids get all the benefits out of athletics, the mental and the physical.
Awesome. Do you want to share any other stories of your clients and some of the athletes that you've worked with?
Yeah, I've worked with I end up working with a lot of high school kids that have, one of the things I find is anytime a kid goes up a level, so if we get a kid goes from 8th grade into a freshman, or we get a senior going into college, every time we do that, they do that, and they're able to do that because they've got some good ability. But when you go up a level, you suddenly go back down to the bottom. And every time I see a kid, we can take a kid, and I have this all the time, that is really good. A lot of my clients are so successful, and they're really good kids. They're smart kids, and they're so successful at their sport. And then when they start to see a little crack, and they realize maybe I'm not as good as I thought I was, or there's other people better than me, that's when we really start to see that confidence crack. And it's a great time for me to step in and help them realize that the whole point here is to keep growing. And especially when we're talking about a kid that's, maybe a freshman in high school and going in, like, you've got so much of your life left, but they don't see it that way, right? It's they identify themselves as this successful athlete, and they start to see, a little bit of a crack in that confidence. And that's a great time for me to step in. And I see a lot of benefit there when they can start to change and say, hey, this is about my growth, and this is the whole point. That's when I really start to see a lot of progress.
Right. We also have 5 minutes left in the show. Is there any words of wisdom you want to share, Matt?
I think more than anything else, I want people to know that, and this is kind of what I was talking about with my vision. It's worth it. Like it's worth time and energy to do this. I think people know when people get a membership to a gym or they start something, they're like, hey, they don't go into one session and say, oh, I'm going to go, I went to the gym today. I'm going to be buff, right? It takes some time and effort to do that. I want people to understand that, but they know that if they do it and they keep coming back, they're going to see gains, right? It's the same thing with mental. I think so often we say things like, oh, I'm going to take a mental health day. Well, you would never say, I'm going to go take a physical health day. I'm going to go to the gym once a month, right? It doesn't do anything. I want people to understand that it is working on your mental health is this daily thing, and you need to have these intentional activities that you practice all the time. And that's a lot of time. That's a lot of what my business is working with those kids to give them these tools, to give them these intentional activities to do every day to help gain that mental toughness that they're going to need for athletics and for life.
And anything at home you could start with your child, mindset wise, starting to teach them on a daily basis of keeping that positivity, keeping that mindset. What can we start doing at home?
I think, again, I've said it before, but it bears repeating. Focus on the controllables, right? If it is not so that parent, you need to have them focus on the controllables. As a parent, you need to be praising the controllables. Okay. So finding things that they can control, their effort, their attitude, and those things, their actions, their reactions, have them focus on those and forget about the rest of the world. Forget about, checking social media, forget about all these other things and what other people can do. Focus on what you can do and focus to control that. And parents, then you need to praise that. Whenever they're giving good effort, praise that effort.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Let's remind everyone how we can reach out to you.
Absolutely. The website is www.mentalmetallifecoaching.com. That's METTLE. My email is coachthomann@gmail.com. That's THOMANN. And my phone number is 309-265-8750.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we do want to reach out. Do you offer an initial consultation to someone?
Yeah, I absolutely. That first session is always free. So anytime anybody gets a hold of me, we set that up, and I'm happy to discuss all that I've been talking about.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. Pleasure having you back, Matt Thomann, and looking forward to the next time we connect.
Awesome.
And I apologize. I have a bad cough. And let me also ask, next time we speak, do you have, is there any insight to what we're talking about? Any teasers?
I think that one of the things I always work on beyond focusing on the controllables is working on your own positive voice. I think that mental health, a lot of times we skip that, and how we talk to ourselves it matters a lot. So getting rid of that negative voice that we beat ourselves up and working on the positive voice.
Thank you again. Pleasure having you here, and looking forward to the next time we connect. Matt Thomann, Believe. I love it. If you guys can't read it because you're not watching.
Awesome.
You gotta believe. Thank you again. Have a fantastic day. And to all of our
Thank
listeners,
you, Jill.
stay tuned. More of the show is on the way.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house.
And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned. This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.